Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to get straight to the point about the new Battlegrounds map and the older original map. I want Bluehole to remove Erangel, the original map, from the game temporarily. Thanks to the experience that Bluehole has gained over the time of Battlegrounds, they actually know a lot more about what makes a good Battle Royale experience because, well, they've had time to learn that. They've had the time to get that experience. Then, with that experience, they've made this new map, and it's great. If you take a quick look at the test servers right now, you'll notice now that they've added the original map to the map pool, over half of the players in the lobby will instantly leave. Then, the players who stay and actually play that match out enjoy a far worse experience than that of Miramar for a lot of different reasons. The obvious reason, though, is that people want to play the new map because it's new, of course. But what I'm saying is that the old map, the original map, is simply worse to play. Let's take an example I consider more obvious, which is the looting. If you played on Miramar, you'll really notice that when you play on Erangel, that map, Jesus, it's so bad for looting. You can really struggle to get a basic setup even when landing in a town all on your own and looting a bunch of buildings. Meanwhile, in Miramar, you always get a reliable setup most of your games, even with different guns each time with that variety, after you've looted your first town, because there's a lot more loot. There's just more spawns than on Erangel. We have way more looting options thanks to a bigger variety of buildings. They've put a lot more of, actual buildings in the game. But it's the fact that the majority of the buildings have loot on their rooftops as well. Thanks to vaulting, Bluehole got this whole new way to add spawns to the game. And if you actually take a quick look here at Erangel, the gaps between towns are bigger and the towns themselves are much smaller. There's just less buildings. So yeah, just look at a couple of these towns in each map. There's so many more buildings on Miramar. Without the large amount of water taking up space, Miramar actually also has more landmass to play with. Yeah, it's actually a bigger map, even though it's slight. The map was designed with the concept of vaulting being in place already, whereas Erangel, the old map, was made kind of with the idea that vaulting was coming at a later date. And yeah, we got by with that older style of gameplay, but with Miramar really feeling like vaulting was a key element to the gameplay and movement, the buildings are actually often designed to allow for vaulting. There's places where they put ledges outside of windows. The fact that you can go on all these roofs and do the parkour and amazing movement there, or just climb through windows from unexpected angles. With that, you get more variation of which angles you can attack or defend from, right? But specifically, there's more out there to allow for that the devs put in the game. You compare that to Erangel, which doesn't really have any of that. There's no convenient boxes placed on corners or stacks of crates or whatever that allow you to get inside and up on top of different places inside buildings, let alone outside them and around them. If you're vaulting on Erangel, then it's just by chance that you can get on that building, versus on Miramar, where they've specifically placed boxes and things around the building to allow for it. It's obvious that I'm for Miramar and against Erangel at this current time, right? But I do want to mention that the map isn't finished. Miramar still needs work. There's random stairwells that don't actually reach the floor, and sometimes, there was this time last night actually, we walked through the floor. We have floating bottles and weird such things in buildings, unfinished details all about the map really. But how do they actually fix that? Well, it's us. We need to play the map, find these issues and report them. And then they can see what's more reported than other things, the things that are more pressing, and fix them as we go. And there's going to be, well, much less feedback because there's two maps in the map pool. When the game goes live 1.0 on the 20th, Miramar hits live servers, the map pool is going to be two different maps. So you're going to have less people playing on Miramar each day. Less feedback. And currently, weather doesn't exist on Miramar either. There's no fog version of the map, there's no rain version, for example. Meanwhile on Erangel, sometimes you load into the next lobby to find out it's one of the dreaded fog maps with barely any vision for the entire game, which, yeah, it can mix up the gameplay, which is a good thing for the game in my opinion, but they've gone too far. It's too much. That's obvious when you load into one of these lobbies by the number at the top right that tells you how many players are in your lobby, as that number dips and dips and dips whenever you get into one of these weather lobbies. My opinion, weather should not be permanent. It should shift throughout the course of the game, and it should be rarer. You should go through an entire match with no weather changes, but let's say the third match in a row of that day, suddenly it begins to rain halfway through that round for about 10 minutes. During that time, things become extra tense. You have less vision, sound is less reliable. It mixes up the gameplay like before, but it is temporary and not too much. Then, let's say the rain passes after those 10 minutes and things ease up again. You could do the same thing for mist and fog. Even more interestingly, you could have only certain areas of the map become misty and foggy or raining for certain periods of the game. That's much more interesting compared to the irritation of a fog map or a rain map the entire match. Weather is yet another reason why players are going to, on 1.0 release on the 20th, they're going to avoid Erangel for Miramar constantly. And that has nothing to do with the fact that the map is new and they want to play the new thing. Finally, let's talk about the layout of the land. A horrible situation that you often find yourself in is a field that provides zero cover in the final circle. It happens constantly. People are prone in the grass because, well, it's their only option to avoid being spotted. It happens so often. That's because there's just a lot of fields on Erangel like that, and often you might find yourself lucky that there's a hill or a mountain involved on your corner of the circle, and even rarer, maybe there'll actually be buildings in the final circle. But the layout of Miramar is much more bumpy compared. There's tons of natural cover in the form of small hills and bumps all over the place. These are known as defilades. And it doesn't really matter where the circle ends up. There's always some kind of cover to work with compared to that of Erangel that certainly feels lacking in that regard. So with the conclusion, with these negative points against Erangel, I want to say that having big differences between these two maps is important. I'm not saying that they should function exactly the same. They should have the same amount of buildings in each city. There should be the same amount of towns. There should be the same amount of bumps all over the map, you know? It should be different. They should be unique from one another. The weather should be different. The map should be different. But what I am saying is that Miramar feels like it was designed for 1.0 Battlegrounds, because it was. And Erangel feels like it was designed for the original alpha of Battlegrounds, because once again, it was. The original map needs a lot of love and a lot of reworking to bring it up to speed with, you know, the new map with Miramar, while Miramar needs a lot of testing. It needs to be ironed out. There are many bumps in its design, as I mentioned. So my advice, my hope, is that they take Erangel out of the map pool temporarily, fix it up, while taking that all-important feedback from the players while they play Miramar, and we see actual progress on both sides at a good pace. Now, they are actually saying that they're going to update Erangel, which is great. This is fantastic. But what I make this video about, mainly, is that I'm worrying that we're going to be dealing with this dated version of Erangel in our map pool for a long while before we actually see any updates to that map. And I'd just much rather play on Miramar until then, because it's the new map. It needs the feedback. It needs the time. We all want to learn it. We can't learn it anywhere near as fast if we're playing on the old map half the time. I'm always open for discussion. What do you think about the map? All my hopes about removing it temporarily, the old one. I'm certain there's people out there who prefer Erangel even now, but my question is, why? Have you played it? If you have, why? Looking forward to your responses either way. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys next time.